everybody, Justin at V55R here. We're going to be doing a couple videos for the next couple weeks. I've been wanting to do some more videos to put on YouTube, but nobody's giving me any other how-to videos to do, so I'm going to do a couple walk-arounds with our vehicles that we have around. Everybody always asks a million questions about them, so I figured like it'd be fun to do a little, you know, Jay Leno's garage kind of a thing, except less chin, more nose. So we're gonna go ahead and walk around the van today, the shop van. So as you can tell, it's a giant, huge-ass van. Everybody always asks what it is because nobody's ever seen one, except for old people. They saw them everywhere and they just call them bread trucks. But this was not a bread truck. Get that out of the way first of all. And it's not an ice cream truck. Get that out of the way too, because I've had 3 ice cream truck guys try to buy it off me, and one little girl come up to the door and ask me if I was open with money in her hand, thinking I was an ice cream truck. Not an ice cream truck. I carry old, rusty, tetanus-covered objects in the back, so no ice cream. Anyway, it's a 1961 Grumman Olson delivery van, step van, people call them. The company Grumman Olson was a kind of a coach building company. They actually make all the mail carrier trucks that you guys have seen forever. They had a contract from the US to make those. But anyway, they started with aluminum airplanes in World War II, and they started making canoes after that. Grumman did, and then he got together with Olson, who saw a need for delivery vans, and they put their heads together after World War II and started making step vans. So that being said, this van is aluminum, which is really good, other than the frame and the running gear and everything, which is steel. Aluminum doesn't rust, you know, you don't get corrosion and stuff like that as much as you would with steel, which is why the body itself is in such good condition over the years. This is a 61. They made them from 54 to 64, pretty much exactly the same in terms of body. The chassis itself they would buy from automakers and just drop their van on it and make some adjustments. So this is actually a Ford chassis, which is one of the selling points of bought it for. We got all Ford stuff. It's built off of P350 chassis, and that's not to say this truck was, you know, somebody put the van on a chassis. It's from the factory. They put them all on that chassis. You could order them from Chevy, you can order them from Chrysler, you can order them from Ford. And so anyway, this is a Ford 61 Ford Grumman Olson step van on a P350 chassis. So it's kind of a long thing. But anyway, so the front of the van, you can see chassis by Ford. It doesn't actually just say Ford, it's chassis by Ford. This stupid emblem cost me 150 bucks, but I was sure as hell gonna have it on there. So when I got the van, it was an advertising display in front of a bike rental place down in San Diego, barely running. He moved it a couple miles every month, just around the block for street sweeping and stuff. Limped it home, went through most everything on it. The only thing left is an engine rebuild, which I'm getting ready to do. But anyway, so it was a bike rental advertisement, stickers on the sides and spray painted, and that was it. Before that, I have pictures of it as a emergency response vehicle in the 70s. Big old monster truck tires on it, and I mean, not like an ambulance or anything, but it would go out, you know, to wildfires, natural disasters, things like that, and you'd run all the administration, kitchen stuff, you know, those kind of things out of it. So I got some pictures of that, which is kind of cool. Before that, I don't know what it was. So the first 10 years of its life, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't a bread truck because it had windows. So there's a bit of cracking on the sides in 2 spots, and there's riveted panels from the inside. It originally had a side window with crank up windows, and also on the back, and it also had a vent on the roof. So it probably had something to do with food service at the time. Not like a food truck, that wasn't really a thing yet, but kind of in the same vein. But anyway, I don't know what it was the first 10 years of its life. So, the front. You can see a lot of similarities with 50s vehicles rather than 60s, even though it's a 61, because like I said, they started making them in 54, and they just kept making them. Fog lights. I got a big air horn mounted under there. All the glass The flat glass you can find still, but these curved ones are just impossible to find. If you know old cars or know somebody with old cars, they'll tell you there's certain things that are like gold. These side glasses are like gold. These are actually plastic. There's a guy in Texas that has one of these, couldn't find these, and started making them. So he sells these for like $100 a piece. It's a good deal. I'd rather not have plastic, but for having something, it's a good deal. This is my air conditioning. Just opens up and shoves hot air, or shoves cold air at your legs, and it actually helps. Wheels and tires, they're very strange hub lug diameter. There's nothing I could replace the original split rim murder wheels with, so I had a place called Collins Wheels up in Bellflower, I believe. Took the hubs, put them into modern 16s, and I got heavyweight rated white walls. These rims also couldn't take hubcaps, so I welded on some nubs, and so they could accept 65 F250 hubcaps, which I chromed and painted after that. So anyway, I finally got my nice shoes on my van, and they look really good. Got my logos, obviously. This green I made just for this. It doesn't even have a name. The guy I share my warehouse with, he calls it Hot Rod Green, which is pretty generic and boring, but there's actually a really funny story. He apparently back in the 70s, his friend bought literally like a barrel of green that he says was this color of paint, and because he got it for cheap, super cheap from somebody, and he painted all of his cars that green. He painted all of his friends' cars that green, and everything that was anywhere near that little social group of friends was this hot rod green, because they had this free paint lying around. So anyway, weird story. I don't know. I ramble. The back didn't have a panel at the bottom. It was ripped off. It would have been open, but there would have been a couple other things that you could add on to it to make it tow and things like that. I just put some sheet aluminum across it. That's also where I mounted it didn't have tail lights or anything when I got it. That's where I mounted my 50 Pontiac tail lights and my British reverse beehive lights. So I got lights all the way around. I got them all on toggles, so I can feel like I'm piloting, Millennium Falcon or something. Anyway, the back, as you can see, it's nice and roomy. Tons of space. I got sound deadener on all the walls because it gets pretty loud when it's empty. The floor's all truck liner, so I can grip. I got my ramp that I custom made for it, my dolly that I can drop down, drop my pins in. Lots of tie down points. Go around to the front. This was another thing that was missing when I got it. It didn't have the door. You can't get the doors. They're not. You can't get them. But you can't get the railing and the hardware and stuff that would be for a modern stepney, which is pretty similar. They started making those in the 60s and really haven't changed much. But anyway, so this door is actually wood, cut to fit. You can tell this is kind of a janky window that was cut in here with plexiglass that was already in there. But you can't paint wood like you can a car, so I skinned this with aluminum to match the rest of the van. Put skid guards that I actually got the idea for these off a trash can later at McDonald's. They worked great until this one started snagging, and then it warped the door, and I started smacking the door with it. But it's a work truck. I don't really care. But other than the fact that it's aluminum, so if that was on a steel body or something, that would all start rusting immediately. But it's aluminum. I don't really care. So anyway, on the inside, big enough that you can walk around with your head not hitting the ceiling, except for where this flag is. The floor has all different panels that pop up so that you can access different parts of the powertrain from the top. I have a bench seat back here that it didn't have originally, but as soon as I got it, I knew I wanted a bench seat. So Chelsea, my wife, could ride in here. This was before we knew we were having a baby. Although our 2-month-old loves riding in here. She likes the shakiness and all that kind of stuff. So you know, we have it set up so that her car seat can buckle in here safely and all that. But so anyway, I got this bench. Actually, the first place we took this van was to Antique Flea Market to vend, and Chelsea just rode on the step right there. And so once we got there, I was looking around for something. I was going to make a bench and frame it in and everything, and then I found this bench there for $100. It's out of a 1959 Superior school bus. It's got a metal back, metal frame, metal legs, standalone. All it is bolt onto the ground, add some seat belts. And I was like, that's perfect. So grabbed this, and I've had like 5 people try to buy it off me since. Captain's chair is not an old one. It was replaced at some point like 10 years ago. It's not really that comfortable. So dash and powertrain. I have my whole little setup up here. I have my GPS that I can plug into my power plug. I have a power inverter behind me, so I can actually plug just any 120 volt thing into my wall outlet down there. I've got my window crank, my AC, like I said, my emergency brake, all of my gauges up here. This is not the original dash. The original dash just had one big gauge here and one little one long speedometer gauge over here, and it actually only had 2 gauges. Still does not have a fuel gauge. Fleet vehicles a lot of times back in the 50s and 60s didn't have fuel gauges, and you would use a stick gauge. So literally you open the gas cap and put this stick in there, wooden stick, and it was like a yardstick, and it would tell you how high the level was. If you're a route vehicle, you're not going to empty this thing out. This gets 230 miles to the tank. You're not going to drive 230 miles in a day in this for what it would have been. I'm still not going to drive 230 miles in a day in this. So basically they top off when they get back to the shop every day, and that was just so they could record how much gas they've used. So the gas tank doesn't even have a place for a sender. I'm going to have to change the gas tank completely if I want to put a fuel gauge in it. As for now, I figured out the mileage on it, and that's what this number over here on the dash is. I just write with dry erase marker when it's going to go empty. So that changes every time I fill up the tank. But if you know anything about old cars, or have ever driven an old car, you've probably done that at some point in your life, a little notepad. So this gauge cluster is not original. This is out of a 58 Ford truck. I wanted to keep it Ford to go with the chassis. Got all my gauges in it, and they all work other than the fuel gauge, like I said, but I just put it in there as a space filler. This is my ignition, this is my choke, and these are all my little toggles for all my little things. So this one is for my fog lights, this one's for my reverse lights, this one's for my headlights, this one is for my fan, which is really a lifesaver because there's really not very much ventilation in here. Most of the time I drive it with the door open. Wave to all the UPS guys and say, look, I'm driving your grandpa, and then they fake laugh and then roll their eyes because I make lame jokes. Steering wheel, it's out of my 55 F100. I drove it with this wheel for a very long time. I changed it out, you'll see in another video, and I put it in here instead. It is manual, so clutch, brake, gas. It's got a 3-speed, which is right here, obviously, with my knob made by Lucky Burton. And it's got a little straight 6, inline 6 Ford 223 for the engine. So this little tiny motor is what's powering this big old behemoth loaded down with car parts and antiques and everything in the back of it. It's super torquey, works great, but it doesn't go past
55 miles an hour even on the freeway. So I get lots of friendly hand gestures going down the road, and horns that are, you know, greeting me pleasantly. But anyway, dome light that I made out of a 52 Ford turn signal. I thought it looked cool, so I added that. This is my motorcycle headlight that I used for a spotlight in the back. This is cut in at some point in the 70s to add for more storage, so I have tools and all sorts of things up there. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything with this. 61 Ford Grumman Olson step van, finished 55 restorations, delivery vehicle, pickup vehicle. I drive this most every day. So they're still on the road, and I live seeing people's face when you come down the road in this thing, because it's huge and people don't see it anymore. It's like you're landing in a UFO. But anyway, I'll see you on the next episode of Vintage 55 garage vehicle walkthroughs. Bye, guys.